Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. A discussion on Al-Quds and Masjid Al-Aqsa in relation to the Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam surely starts from the time of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam. Whilst it's very likely that before Ibrahim alayhi salam, other Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam visited Masjid Al-Aqsa or Al-Baytul Maqdis. There may not have been the structure of Masjid Al-Aqsa at that point in time, but their visiting and venerating from a historical point of view has been documented, especially in the case of Adam alayhi salatu wassalam, who some historians consider to be the first builder and constructor of the compound of Masjid Al-Aqsa. Nonetheless, Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam is associated with two important events in Islam. One is the raising of the qawa'id or the structure of Masjidul Haram in Makkatul Mukarramah, which we know as the Ka'batullah. Ibrahim alayhi salam, together with his son Ismail, found the foundations of the Ka'batullah that was initially built by Adam alayhi salam and raised the building to where it stands today. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam was also responsible for the construction and the revival of Masjid Al-Aqsa. There very likely was no village around Masjid Al-Aqsa at that point in time, as this was constructed by the Romans many years later. But the masjid itself, which was on top of the hill in the center of Al-Quds, was no doubt from the time of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam. What's also unique about Masjid Al-Aqsa or Al-Quds in particular, and in relation to Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, is that it was the mahjar. The mahjar is the place of migration of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam. We know in the story of Ibrahim that he initially confronts his father and his idol-worshipping community in the city of Ur, which is today in Iraq. And this particular community, being idol worshippers, venerated their idols in the name of their king. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam questions the motives of their people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up his heart to hidayat and guidance, and ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides him ila rushdihi, to his righteousness, in the way of confronting the polytheistic ways of his people. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam rejects the ways of his people. The famous incident of him destroying the idols and putting the axe on the shoulder of the biggest idol occurs, and Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam is forced to leave the community. He is presented in front of the king, who has him thrown into the fire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then tells the fire, Ya naru kuni barda wa salaman ala Ibrahim, that, O fire, become cool and tranquil upon Ibrahim. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, after being saved from the flames and the fire, realizes that he needs to leave the community of where he had grown up, as they would never accept the tawheed and the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He bids his father farewell. He travels with his wife Sarah and Lut alayhi salatu wasalam, who is either his nephew, his cousin, or a close relative of his that chooses to accept the deen of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and would later on become a Nabi, a prophet of Allah. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, in identifying and looking at the different places of mahjar, of migration, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides him to the area of Al-Quds. This is no accident, for ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the guide of every one of his Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam and every righteous believer. In the case of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is clear, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ, that he does not speak from his own whims and desires, he does not speak from his own thoughts, but rather it is wahi and revelation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down upon him. The fact that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam goes in the direction of Al-Quds, where his progeny continues to reside for many centuries later, is an indication that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made Al-Quds the mahjar, the place of migration for the people of Iman and a source of protection for the people of Iman. He goes to this land, and later on this land, or the province of this land, known as Canaan province, which features in the story of his son Ishaq and his grandson Yaqub and great-grandson Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. It is at this place of his mahjar, his place of hijrah, his place of migration, that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam receives further instruction and further bounties from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That it is at this place that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants him a son, Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam. It is at this place, or from this place, that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam ventures to other parts of the world, like Egypt, with the intent and the purpose of propagating the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as per his mandate as a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants him and his family Hajar, the mother of Ismail, and who will be the future great ancestral mother of our Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It is within the confines of this place that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tests Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, that take your family, Bibi Hajar, and your infant son Ismail, and march to the south and deposit them where I tell you to deposit them, which would later on become the vibrant city of Makkatul Mukarramah. That instruction to do so comes at the place of Al-Quds, which shows us that in the case of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, that Al-Quds was not only the mahjar, the place of hijrah, it was also the place of instruction, wherein he would now go and he would now give da'wah to neighboring countries and communities from that particular place. It was also the place of testing Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, that although a greater test came later in the precincts of Makkatul Mukarramah, wherein he was now told to go and sacrifice his son, the initial instruction of sacrifice, of qurbani, came where? It came in Al-Quds al-Sharif, wherein he now had to take Hajar, his wife, and Ismail, the infant son, and start a long march, start a long journey from Masjidul Aqsa right down to Makkatul Mukarramah, a journey of many hundreds of miles, and return back to Al-Quds to be with his other family, Sarah and his son Ishaq. This signifies that in the case of this ummah, much of what we do is reflective of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. He is ultimately the father of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam by way of an ancestral link, and by way of tawheed, by way of being challenged by his communities. Much of what Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam went through is reflected in the life of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He was opposed by his people and communities who were polytheistic. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well was opposed by them. He was made to leave his place of comfort, his place of home, and to search for another home. This was in the case of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who eventually left Makkatul Mukarramah, and he now settles in Madinatul Munawwarah, which is his mahjar, his place of migration. By way of physical features, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very similar to Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Thus, if it is reflective of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose for him the place of hijrah, the place of migration, to be Al-Quds, the area of Al-Quds, then so too, as it served as the fort of the protection for Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, who was the master and Nabi of Tawheed at that point in time, it is also expected that Al-Quds serve as a fort of protection for the mu'mineen and the believers throughout time, in our time as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the love and the appreciation of Masjid al-Aqsa and the areas around it, Al-Quds al-Sharif. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to shower His barakah in that Mubarak part of the world, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to visit over and over again. Wa alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
واسأل عنا له المنا قل علامات انت تدريبه مدعيكم غايب عنا والحكم ميوز في الغيبة.